Tanora Island. In the middle of a vast, primeval ocean lay the island of Tanora. The island's waters shimmered with shades of blue that no living soul had seen in the mortal world, and the sky above was a canvas of swirling colors, reflecting the endless possibilities that Tanora offered. It was a tropical paradise, where time existed differently and the air carried the fragrance of creation itself. To the souls who found their way here, Tanora was not just an island, it was a waiting ground, a place between lives, where the next adventure was dreamed into existence. When a soul arrived on Tanora, it was neither day nor night but something in between, a time of twilight that allowed reflection without the rush of passing time. The soul always found itself on a quiet beach, waves lapping gently at its feet. In the distance stood a small, inviting cottage nestled between tall, swaying palms. This was the starter house, waiting patiently for its new inhabitant. It was simple yet perfect, with all the amenities a soul could need: soft beds with blankets spun from clouds, a kitchen stocked with endless food and drink that never spoiled, and a view of the island that extended to the edges of imagination. But the most important feature of the house sat upon a humble wooden desk by the window, a sleek, unassuming laptop. This was no ordinary device. It needed no charging, never dirtied, and never failed. The laptop was not for work or communication, it was a tool for creation. Inside this laptop lay the true heart of Tanora, a program with the power to shape the very reality around it. The moment the soul touched the keyboard, the screen flickered to life with a simple command. Begin your world. With that, the island around the soul was no longer just the idyllic Tanora, it was their Tanora, a blank canvas where anything could be crafted. The program allowed the soul to reshape the landscape at will. Rolling hills could rise from the flat plains, vast jungles could sprout from the sandy shores, and towering waterfalls could cascade from jagged cliffs that had not existed moments before. The limits of the natural world were meaningless here, all was possible. Plants and terrain. The soul could select from an endless variety of flora, plants that shimmered with the light of distant stars, trees whose leaves hummed with soft melodies, and vines that grew into shapes of impossible beauty. The land could be sculpted with the mere thought of its creator. One soul might build vast deserts with towering dunes, while another might cover their island in cool, mist-filled forests or create an entire archipelago of islands, each with its own distinct climate. Animals. Then came the creatures. Any form of life imaginable could be brought into existence on Tanora. Majestic birds with iridescent feathers soared across the skies, while great beasts, some larger than mountains, wandered the plains. The soul could shape every detail, every fur strand, every feather, every glistening scale. Some souls chose to recreate animals from their previous lives: deer, foxes, elephants, and whales, while others dreamed up new species that could never exist in the mortal world. Giant, friendly sea serpents glided through the waves, and playful creatures with wings and fins leapt through the waterfalls. But more extraordinary still was the power to invite intelligent life. Sentient beings were not merely created by the soul, they were invited. The soul would craft a figure, a person, an entity with personality and depth, and send out a call across the vastness of Tanora to other islands, each belonging to another soul in the in-between. The call was gentle but clear, like a whisper in the wind. The invited beings could choose whether or not to accept the call. If they accepted, they would arrive on the soul's island of Tanora, stepping onto the shores like old friends, eager to explore the new world that had been crafted. Some arrived out of curiosity, others out of a shared vision. They would walk the land, experience the creation, and perhaps offer ideas of their own. Building a society. The possibility of collaboration was where Tanora truly blossomed. Many souls, after countless eons of solitude, found joy in combining their islands with others. A soul could merge their creation with another's, knitting together their islands into a larger land mass. Sometimes, these partnerships formed sprawling cities where once there had only been jungle or mountain. Souls built towering spires of crystal, underwater palaces lit by the glow of bioluminescent creatures, or even floating citadels that drifted through the air, tethered to the land by only the lightest strands of magic. In these combined islands, civilizations could grow, beings from one island would mingle with those of another, sharing stories, art, and knowledge. A harmonious symphony of life played out across these shared lands, with creatures from every corner of the imaginations walking side by side. The Council of Creation. While each soul could choose to live alone in solitude or in small, peaceful groups, there existed a gathering place for all souls, the Council of Creation. This was a grand hall that existed at the heart of Tanora, accessible to all. It was a meeting place for souls to share their creations, ideas, and even seek guidance from others. The hall itself was a masterpiece of ever-shifting architecture, constantly evolving to reflect the creativity of the souls who gathered there. Some days it was a vast, open amphitheater of stone, on others, it appeared as a forest clearing where the trees themselves whispered advice. Here, the most ambitious collaborations began. Some souls, inspired by the boundless potential of Tanora, sought to create entire new realms, vast worlds that would connect their islands in ways that none had dreamed before. These shared worlds were living, breathing tapestries, woven from the imaginations of countless souls, and governed by the rules they chose. Infinite creation, infinite time. Time on Tanora flowed differently. A soul could spend what felt like an eternity crafting their island, sculpting mountains, filling oceans, and populating jungles, yet in the mortal realm, it could be only a moment before they were called back to life. Some souls returned to Tanora time and again between their lives, continuing their creations with renewed insight from their experiences in the living world. Others found solace in staying for ages, content in their eternal creations, finding purpose in their artistry. But no soul ever grew lonely in Tanora. Whether by crafting sentient beings, inviting other souls, or merging islands to form new lands, the island was always alive with the possibilities of connection, growth, and infinite potential. In this way, Tanora was not simply a waiting ground, it was the ultimate canvas, a place of endless creation where every soul could dream, build, and live again. And as the primeval ocean stretched beyond the horizon, the souls of Tanora knew that they were never truly alone, always a thought away from discovering the next creation, the next companion, the next island that would join theirs in the boundless tapestry of the in-between. Chapter 2. In the heart of Tanora, there were two souls who found each other as if by fate, drawn together by the shared desire to create something more than just an island. Their first meeting was by chance, or at least it seemed that way. Both souls had spent what felt like lifetimes building their separate islands, sculpting worlds of vast beauty and imagination. But the longing for companionship, true companionship, lingered in both of them, and the whispers of connection between their two islands grew louder with every passing moment. When they finally came together, it was not with grand fanfare or cosmic event. It was on a simple day, as the twilight of Tanora stretched across the ocean. One soul, a gentle presence who had always imagined the warmth of nurturing, arrived on the shore of the other's island. The second soul, who had been creating vast landscapes full of wonder but missing something essential, felt the call. They stood before each other, and in that unspoken exchange, they knew they could build something far greater together than alone. Their forms shifted and settled into new shapes, and as they took on physical forms, they chose roles that resonated with their deepest selves. The first soul became a mother, kind and wise, her presence radiating warmth and comfort. The second soul took the form of a boy, full of boundless curiosity and excitement, always eager to explore the next adventure. Together, they embarked on a new journey, not just to build, but to share their world with each other and create something that would transcend the limits of individual imagination. The Island of Dreams. The first thing they did together was to merge their islands. Her island was filled with lush forests and serene lakes, a place of reflection and gentle beauty. His was more wild, rugged cliffs, sprawling meadows, and curious creatures that leapt and bounded across the landscape. When their islands became one, it was as if two halves of a heart had finally met. The landscape shifted, balanced, and flowed together in perfect harmony. The forests met the cliffs, the lakes shimmered next to the meadows, and the creatures, both calm and wild, wandered freely through the new land they had created. But that was only the beginning. The mother, as she came to be known, taught the boy the art of crafting with care and thoughtfulness. They spent days, though time held little meaning here, designing trees that shimmered with golden leaves and flowers that bloomed in every color imaginable. They carved rivers that sparkled like liquid diamonds, and when the sun rose over their island, it was always in a glorious display of pinks, purples, and golds, casting a gentle light over the world they had made. The boy, in turn, brought with him a wild imagination. Where his mother sculpted with grace, he played with the limits of possibility. He filled the skies with winged creatures of his own invention, dragons made of mist and birds that sang songs which changed the weather. He shaped mountains that floated in the air, tethered to the earth by streams of water, and built forests where every tree told a different story through its bark and branches. They worked together, not in opposition, but in balance. She taught him to see the beauty in small details, he showed her the wonder of pushing boundaries. Their island, once a quiet sanctuary, became something far greater, an island of dreams, where anything was possible and every corner held a new secret to discover. The arrival of others. As time went on, their island grew not only in scope but in renown. Across the infinite ocean of Tanora, whispers of their creation began to spread. Other souls, drawn by the stories of this magnificent island where imagination knew no bounds, began to visit. Some stayed for only a short while, admiring the beauty and then returning to their own islands to continue their work. But others, feeling the pull of this world the boy and his mother had created, chose to remain. The boy and his mother, now hosts of this growing realm, welcomed these souls with open arms. Each visitor was given space to shape their own part of the island, to contribute their unique visions to the collective dream. One soul created a grove where every tree bore glowing fruits that told ancient stories. Another crafted a lake whose waters reflected not the sky above, but the endless possibilities of each visitor's imagination. And yet another, a solitary artist, built a series of spiraling towers made of crystal that played music when the wind passed through them. Soon, the island was no longer just a place of dreams for two souls, it had become a gathering place, a shared creation that grew and expanded with every new visitor. Each soul added something of themselves, and in return, they found a sense of belonging that transcended their individual lives. The mother and the boy watched with joy as their world blossomed into something far greater than either of them could have imagined alone. The formation of a continent. As the island of the mother and her son became more than just an island, other souls began to follow their example. Islands that had once floated separately in the primeval ocean of Tanora began to drift closer together, drawn by the promise of shared creation and community. Slowly but surely, these islands began to connect, their landscapes merging just as the mothers and the boys had done before. Bridges of glowing stone linked the islands, and paths made of stardust led from one to another, creating a vast network of interconnected lands. The boy, now older and wiser, traveled to these new islands, meeting the souls who inhabited them and inviting them to join the growing continent. Each island that merged brought something new, an endless desert where the wind whispered forgotten secrets, a jungle that grew upside down, with trees whose roots reached for the sky, and a city of glass towers that shimmered with the colors of the sunset. It wasn't long before a true continent was born, a vast land where thousands of souls lived together in harmony. The continent had no name, for it was ever-changing, a place of infinite possibility. There were cities and villages, forests and deserts, mountains that reached the stars, and valleys filled with flowers that glowed in the dark. The boy and his mother's island became the heart of this new land, a place of gathering and council where all the souls came together to share their creations and dreams. A new beginning. Though they had already created so much, the boy and his mother found that their journey was far from over. Together, they continued to explore the limits of their world, always dreaming of what could be. The mother found joy in guiding new souls who arrived in Tanora, teaching them the art of creation and showing them the wonders of this boundless world. The boy, now a young man, continued to push the limits of imagination, crafting new realms, exploring the depths of the oceans and the heights of the floating mountains he had once dreamed into existence. They never tired of each other's company, and their bond grew deeper with every passing day. They knew that their time in Tanora was not infinite, that one day, they would be called back to the mortal world to live another life. But they also knew that, when that day came, they would return to Tanora once more, ready to create again, to dream again, and to share their world with all who sought its beauty. For in the heart of Tanora, creation was endless, and the love between a mother and her son could never fade, no matter how many lifetimes passed. Together, they had built more than just an island, they had built a legacy that would live on in the hearts of all who walked the shores of Tanora, a place where dreams became reality and where every soul could find their own piece of paradise. Chapter 3. The continent that once began as an island of dreams had grown into a vast, ever-changing realm, alive with magic and filled with the creativity of countless souls. Among the many wonders that defined this enchanted land, there was one unifying element that bound together all who lived there, the games. The games of Tanora were not just entertainment, they were adventures, challenges, and explorations of the very limits of the imagination. They were a grand celebration of life between lives, a way for the souls to connect, grow, and experience the thrill of creation. Every year, during the grand festival seasons, the continent came alive with the most magnificent tournaments, journeys, and magical experiences. The grand adventures. Throughout the year, souls could join any number of adventures, from epic quests across the continent's varied landscapes to magical duels between ancient creatures. These adventures took place across sprawling territories, from the frozen peaks of the sky-shard mountains to the glowing forests of the Silverwood, to the floating islands that drifted above the endless seas. The Sky-Shard Expedition. One of the most popular adventures was the Sky-Shard Expedition, a yearly trek up the tallest mountains, where griffins, dragons, and elementals ruled the skies. Participants, both souls and their magical companions, would embark on this quest to reach the Sky-Shard Pinnacle, a floating island high above the mountains. The journey was perilous but exhilarating. Souls had to tame griffins to ride through the turbulent winds, solve puzzles guarded by air elementals, and face trials set by ancient dragons who resided in the clouds. The final challenge was to retrieve a shard of the crystal skies, an artifact that allowed its bearer to create anything from the very essence of the skies themselves. The Feywild Chase. Another beloved adventure was the Feywild Chase, an enchanting and whimsical game that took place in the shimmering woods and meadows inhabited by fairies, unicorns, and wood elementals. In this playful challenge, participants were tasked with finding the Feywild Crown, a mystical artifact hidden deep within the Silverwood. The catch. The fairies and their mischievous kin would do everything in their power to trick, mislead, and confuse the adventurers. Unicorns would dash through the meadows, their hooves leaving trails of magic, while fairies disguised themselves as forest creatures, playing pranks and leading souls in circles. Those who successfully completed the Feywild Chase would be crowned Forest Sovereign for the next year and granted the ability to shape the Feywild itself for one day, redesigning the magical forest with their vision. The Sirens' Descent. On the coastal edges of the continent lay the Sirens' Isles, home to mermaids and water elementals. Here, souls could partake in the Sirens' Descent, an underwater adventure where they would dive deep into the glowing depths of the ocean to retrieve ancient treasures from the sunken city of Thalassia. With the guidance of mermaids and the aid of water elementals, souls would encounter mystical creatures like sea serpents and manticores guarding the underwater ruins. The Sirens' Descent was a game of speed and strategy, for the waters were alive with both beauty and danger, and only those who truly understood the balance of the ocean could succeed. The annual festivals. The continent of Tanora hosted several grand festivals throughout the year, each celebrating different aspects of the soul's creativity and their connection to the magical beings that lived alongside them. These festivals were not only times of celebration, but moments when the veil between imagination and reality became even thinner, and the world was reshaped in new and wondrous ways. The Festival of Eternal Flames. Held at the height of summer, the Festival of Eternal Flames was a dazzling display of fire magic, celebrated by fire elementals, dragons, and phoenixes. This festival took place in the heart of the Ember Plains, a region where volcanoes smoldered and lava rivers glowed beneath the surface. The air itself shimmered with heat, and during the festival, the sky was filled with fire dragons dancing in patterns of flame. Souls who attended this festival could partake in fire-breathing contests, pyromancy duels, and the Grand Firewalk, where participants would journey barefoot across molten rivers to prove their mastery of flame. The climax of the festival was the Phoenix Rebirth, a ritual where souls and creatures alike could shed their old forms and be reborn anew, just as the phoenix rises from its ashes. Many souls chose this moment to reinvent themselves, taking on new shapes or even entire new roles, finding a deeper connection to their creative powers. The Festival of Celestial Night. In stark contrast to the blazing summer flames, the Festival of Celestial Night was held during the winter solstice. It was a time of introspection and wonder, celebrated in the northern starlands, where the skies were filled with auroras and the ground sparkled with stardust. The festival began at dusk, and for an entire night, the continent was bathed in the gentle glow of stars. During this festival, souls could commune with the celestial beings that roamed the starlands, including star dragons and night elementals. There were games of constellation weaving, where souls would arrange the stars in new patterns, creating vast tapestries across the sky. Some of the more adventurous souls took part in the Midnight Hunt, where they would ride stardust griffins through the skies, chasing after the elusive, shimmering creatures that only appeared during this festival. The night concluded with the Astral Ball, a grand gathering where all souls dressed in garments made of starlight and danced under the stars to music that echoed through the cosmos. The Verdant Renewal. Every spring, the festival of verdant renewal was celebrated in the lush heart of the continent, where nature itself came alive. This festival marked the renewal of life and the deep connection between souls and the natural world. The verdant creatures, unicorns, fairies, and wood elementals, were the stars of the festival, leading the parades and games. Souls would participate in the Great Bloom, a competition to see who could create the most magnificent gardens, groves, and forests. The festival grounds were covered in a patchwork of glowing flowers, enchanted trees, and living sculptures made of vines and moss. But it wasn't only about beauty. Participants would also bring their creations to life, with magical animals springing from their floral designs, and spirits of nature dancing in the groves. At the end of the festival, the queen of the forest, a unicorn of immense power and wisdom, would bless the land with her magic, ensuring that the continent would flourish with life for another year. The mythical creatures of Tanora. The continent was home to countless mythical creatures, each tied to the soul of the land. Some were protectors, others playful tricksters, and all added to the wonder and magic of Tanora. Dragons. Dragons of all kinds roamed the skies and mountains, from massive fire-breathing beasts that guarded ancient temples to smaller, playful sky dragons that flitted through the clouds. These creatures were both feared and revered, and many of the grand adventures involved taming or working alongside them. The most ancient and wise of the dragons, like the Star Dweller and the Flame Heart, were known to grant powerful boons to those souls who proved themselves worthy. Griffins. Noble and majestic, the griffins were the guardians of the sky-shard peaks. They served as companions to many souls, flying them across the skies on their backs and aiding them in their adventures. Griffins were intelligent and loyal, but they demanded respect from those who sought to ride them. Unicorns. Unicorns, beings of purity and grace, lived in the heart of the forests. They were often elusive, appearing only to those with the purest intentions. Their magic could heal wounds and even restore life to the dead, making them some of the most revered creatures on the continent. During the festival of verdant renewal, unicorns would wander freely, blessing those who came near. Mermaids. In the depths of the ocean surrounding Tanora, the mermaids ruled. These graceful creatures were known for their beauty and their songs, which could enchant and beguile any who listened too closely. Mermaids often played tricks on souls who ventured too deep into the Sirens' Isles, but they were also known to aid those who earned their trust, guiding them to lost treasures hidden in the ocean's depths. Manticores. These fierce, lion-like creatures with venomous tails and wings guarded the hidden places of the land. While dangerous to the unprepared, they were also highly intelligent, and many souls found them to be valuable allies when approached with respect. Fairies and elementals. The fairies and elementals were the true spirits of the land, weaving the magic that kept the continent alive. Fairies danced through the forests and meadows, playing tricks on the unsuspecting, but they also held deep wisdom. Elementals, on the other hand, embodied the natural forces of the world: fire, water, air, and earth. They could be called upon to aid souls in their adventures, but they were forces of nature, not to be commanded lightly. The living dream. As the games and festivals continued year after year, Tanora's continent remained a place of endless creation and exploration. Every soul who walked its lands found a new way to express themselves, whether through building, adventuring, or simply being part of the grand, ongoing dream. The mother and her son, the original creators of the island that had sparked this world, watched with pride and joy as their dream grew beyond anything they could have ever imagined. In Tanora, the line between dream and reality no longer existed. There was only the magic of creation, shared between souls and the mythical creatures that called this place home. Together, they danced through the seasons of life, celebrating the infinite possibilities of a world shaped by imagination.